guys, I'm so excited to be able to join you. And if you didn't notice, Beth just put into our challenge, she just put in there that we've got 6,000 now on subscribers on YouTube. Woohoo! Which is awesome. And what a great day to be able to celebrate. We have an amazing speaker here, Sunil Godse, who's going to be sharing with us how can we use our intuition to be able to run our business better. And this has been a big, huge part of my own business success. And the times that I have made the worst decisions have been when I have listened to what other people have told me instead of listening to my gut. He's also written a book called Gut, and I have been listening to it all weekend. You will not be disappointed if you download this book and start listening to it. It's all going to start to make sense for you as to why we need to get better at listening to our gut so that we can run our businesses more effectively. Now, he has actually run some really successful businesses himself. He has made over $20 million with his earlier adventures, right? With this. And you also are an intuitive business coach. So you teach others how to use their intuition to be able to make better decisions, which can lead you to getting to those six-figure numbers when it comes to running any business that it is that you choose to run. So help me welcome Sunil. Yay!
Woo! Happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, and happy to drop some amazing knowledge bombs. And people watching or listening are going to come away with some practical steps on how they can start to trust their intuition today to make their lives better personally and professionally.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. And I feel like when you start moving into the business world and you start having your own business, you need to grow personally more. You've not only do you have to have a thicker skin, but there's so many things that you just have to work on yourself. So like personal development stuff is my number one like go-to type of stuff that I love to be able to read when I've got some free time, because I know that if I grow as a person, I can make a better impact on the people that I want to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that intuition does not care about is whether if you're in a personal situation, a business situation. And one of the things that I looked at is, of course, there's I would call the woo-woo part of intuition. And when I first started kind of going down this road, it was about, voices from God, manifestation, coming from the cosmos, which is fine if you believe that. In fact, I had one ex-NHL coach who believed that it came from the cosmos. And as much as I thought he was relied on data when it comes to putting players on the ice, he says, no, it actually is. In the end, the data can say one thing, but my intuition is the one that tells me which player should go on at what time, for what shift. But when it comes to intuition, and when we marry the science of it with sort of that woo-woo element, your intuition hits the amygdala, which is the limbic part of the brain. There's no capacity for language. It's your fight or flight center. And it's the first place that you make a decision. So whether in your personal life or in your business, it doesn't matter. The way that intuition actually works is the same thing through things called intuitive signals. And the problem that we have is that we're not very familiar with the subtle signals. And that's because we sometimes take, we all do. 99% of us are walking around getting advice from somebody else, or somebody said something in the past, or we went through some trauma, or we're trying to prove something to somebody else. And then when that happens, we're looking through the lenses of others, through the opinions of others, and we're not really showing up for ourselves. And what are our signals? And so when we're listening to other people, we dampen those intuitive signals that are telling us, hey, this is the right decision to make. Why are you ignoring me? And so those signals get louder and louder until you can't ignore them anymore. But by that time, you make a couple of bad decisions. And so those bad decisions could be minor. They could be stubbing your toe, or they could be major, and you could be headed towards bankruptcy. You don't know what that range is.
That is just, you don't. And so it's so important just to begin learning how to. Now, you had mentioned inside of your book that there's different types of intuition. Now, I didn't even, I just thought it was just intuition, right? But there's different types of intuition. You talked about relationship intuition and all those different kinds of, what are the different types of intuition?
Absolutely. So there's four types of intuition, and the best way I can explain this to those listening and watching is through a non-believer. So one of the guys that I interviewed was a fellow by the name of John Rothschild. This guy, he's an investment banker. He said, "There's no way that intuition exists." And he says, "I don't know what we're going to talk about, Sunil, but you come down. We'll talk about intuition for maybe a couple of minutes, and the rest of the hour, let's just catch up. I haven't seen you in a while." So I'm driving down to see him, and it's like, oh my God, like, what are we going to talk about here? Because he doesn't believe in it. And he was one of my very, very first interviewees after I did a lot of the research in the book. So And I was telling him that, you know what, there's these signals, and there's actually a CEO that sees omens that come up on behind his right shoulder, and he's run two multi-million-dollar businesses. He's built them based on this omen that pops up that tells him this is the right decision to make. And so John's saying, yeah, you know what, I'd like to, this is on camera, by the way, John's saying, I'd like to shake this guy's hand. It doesn't exist. And he was saying, listen, intuition is all about experience and learning. And I'm saying, okay, hold on, John, now, because there are four types of intuition. Now we're going to start getting into each one. One of the main ones is called experiential intuition. And so when you're born, which intuition you have when you're born, every single day you've got experiences, both formal and informal. So school, street smarts, learning, both formal and informal, good and bad. So your failures are also in there. The hurdles are in there. And your intuition puts it in the subconscious area of your brain like a library, all this information. So when you're making a decision and it sends you a signal, that signal is jam-packed with your previous experience and learning that is telling you either you're making the right decision or you're making the wrong decision. And when I was telling John, I said, John, in some cases, your data goes, your intuition says go against the data. And John's saying, well, that's kind of funny. I actually remember a time when this happened. And so I was telling him to tell him that. So John was in the business of putting franchises in, like McDonald's, Wendy's, Dunkin' Donuts, those kind of things. And his team would measure it on a scale of 1 to 10. And 9 out of 10 meant that a franchise location went in. And they looked at demographics, traffic patterns, development in the area as examples. So there was this really crappy area of Toronto, Canada, that his team was saying it was a 5.5 out of 10. And now we're getting into the second of the four. The first was experiential. The second is called situational intuition. He walks into this area and just looks around and he goes, something is telling me. And now he's saying, perhaps it's my intuition. So he's starting to use the language. Something is telling me to put a location here, even though my team says it's a 5.5 out of 10. He goes against the data, puts a location there. That becomes something called the beer market, which was the most successful franchise operations out of all the portfolio of franchises he had. And so at some point, John's purpose changes, and he wants to now, instead of being an investment banker, he wanted to actually run a business. And so now we're going to get into the third of the four, called relational intuition. Relational intuition filters the people through to have you surround yourself with those who truly care for you and moving your life forward. They're not yes people, but you know they've got your back. You know they've got the experience to help you through. All of the people, after John's purpose changed it, the people that were concerned about money, fame, ego, high-end restaurants, limousines, private jets, all those people told him he was nuts. The one person he trusted was his wife. Mm-hmm. And his wife was just simply asked, John, why are you doing this? And he looks square at his wife and he says, this just feels right. That's an intuitive signal. And then he goes on to say, sometimes, Sunil, you have to put away the data. The data only gets you so far. In the end, you have to use your intuition. Now he's fully using the word intuition from 45 minutes ago, saying that it didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Because what I've done is I've told him what his intuition is, his definition, his experiences, what he does. And the last of the four is creative intuition. Creative intuition is the one that actually helps you make the decision. So if you're eating a sandwich or turning left at a signal, your creative intuition is pretty low. But if you're going to make a decision that's really obtuse in nature, your creative intuition is high. In John's case, he wanted to run this tiny restaurant. Now, you would think that his intuition, based on his experience, because this guy's making $3 to $4 million a year as an investment banker, healthy cash flows, strong revenues, great balance sheet. His intuition says, nope, you're going to run a tiny, bankrupt little restaurant. John walks into that restaurant after quitting, trusting his intuition. That tiny, bankrupt restaurant was Eastside Mario's location number 1. And over the next 20 years, he grew that one location, because it felt right, into a $2 billion behemoth before he retired.
Wow.
That's the power of intuition. And now you've taken what intuition is in terms of your experiences, your signals, how you define it, how it's unique to you, right? Some have omens, some have left earlobes getting hot, some have gut feelings, some have voices, but you have to figure out what your unique signals are. And that's where you have to do the homework. And that's where many people talk about, I'm living in the present moment. I have a gut feeling. I trust that voice. But respectfully, a lot of people haven't done the homework on their inventory of signals.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, Joanne, you and I do our homework, and we do the exercise on signals. And let's say we get that gut feeling, which is negative. So for you, let's say you've done your homework and it's signal number one. And let's say for me, I'm just lazy and I haven't done my homework. And that for me is signal number four. If I assume that that signal number four was actually number one for me, that means I've missed three signals because I didn't do my homework. And those three signals means that I've made three bad decisions. So those bad decisions could be either I stubbed my toe on the door or I'm heading towards bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Right.
right? Because we don't know. And so that's why it's very important for those listening and watching to do the homework on your signals. And the easy way to do this is go back to your past decisions. List on a piece of paper, what are your good decisions and what are your bad decisions? And what did it feel like when you made the good decisions? And typically you'll get a feeling of flow, a pulling, it just feels right. The field is open, the dots are connected. So these are all ways that over 1,000 people that I've interviewed, this is sort of the common signals that they have. But the negative ones, what you have to do is pay attention. So let's say I've done that as I talked earlier, that gut feeling for you is number one. But if it was gut feeling for me, which was signal number four, then I need to think back to that decision, say, what was signal number three and number two and number one? Because it's signal number one I got to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And normally that's it's a whisper, it's a nudge, it's something's off. And that's what you need to pay attention to. And then once you have your inventory of positive and negative signals, which everybody can do, and I've got a free 7-day challenge where it takes people through that process of how to figure that out for a specific problem. Then what happens is whenever you meet people, you need to take account of these signals, because they will let you know, is that somebody that's trustworthy to bring into your inner circle or not?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what happens is then you filter your relationships. The only people are on the inside, and they will never affect your ability to doubt yourself.
I love it.
Because when you don't doubt yourself, that's when you pay attention to the signals. So it's really, really important to figure out what these signals are. It's really, really important to filter your relationships starting now.
Yeah.
To do that. And people say it's hard, but it's not.
Right.
The hard part is having that conversation. The hard part is letting them go. But if your intuition is saying you got to do it,
yeah,
you got to do it. And there's something called opportunity cost. And opportunity cost, and I'll give you a very good example of this. One of the people I interviewed was a fellow by the name of Vin Zhang. He was an international magician, and now he's gone on to communication. In 2016, this guy was speaking to 100,000 people, 80 stages around the world, but all it looks, he was so successful extrinsically. They had the brands, they had the people who were part of the clique in LA, downtown LA. Everything looked like he was on fire, except his intuition was saying, you need some help, my friend. So he goes to New Zealand and goes no cell signal, nothing. And he needs to reset. So he puts up these things of the values on the wall of who he thinks the values are, what he wants from his relationships. And he goes, that's really interesting. This is what my wife wants. This is what my manager wants. This is what the people I speak to want. And he's going on and saying, these are all through the lens of other people. And so he takes those down. He puts out his own pieces of paper. And he said what he thought would have been cathartic, would have been freeing, was frightening, because for the first time ever in his life, he's given himself permission to live his life according to him. And it was frightening.
Yeah.
And so he does that exercise and goes and then comes back from New Zealand. And the problem is you got to take action. And he falls back at the same level of what he was doing before, back with the same set of friends, back with the brands, back doing the same old crap that he did. And 6 months later, his parents come up from Australia, and his mom takes him aside. And there's this saying he says in Vietnamese that when you hang around squid, you're going to get some ink on you.
Oh, I love that.
And she says, you're hanging around a lot of squid, my friend. This is not my boy. And so he just decides 6 months later, he's done. He gets rid of his friends, gets rid of the brands, gets rid of that. It goes from a Mercedes into a minivan, gets rid of the downtown LA, moves to the suburbs, and he's finally free and he's happy. And the problem is that he wasted 6 months of that process by not taking action. And so what I said to him, and this is where opportunity cost comes in, it's not just the 6 months, Vin, that you lost not doing the right thing. It's also the 6 months that you could have gained back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you actually lost a full year of
Right.
your life,
Right.
which is your opportunity cost. And then on top of that, if you're in the business of helping 100,000 people a year improve their lives, how many lives did you leave behind?
Right.
How many people didn't you help if that's what your purpose is?
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, I've never, ever thought about like that, Sunil. I've never thought about it like that. So taking action is not hard. It's actually easy because your intuition is right there. Your signals are right there.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to trust them. You got to do your homework, figure out what those signals are, and then take action. And it is fearful.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fearful. And a really good case study of this is one of the colleagues I interviewed was a fellow by the David Dame. David Dame had cerebral palsy, and he's been in his wheelchair all his life. And he would always want to go to the beach, but because he was in his wheelchair, he would never go onto the beach. And he would always think, what if? And there was this one time and he would just ignore his intuition. And finally he said, I'm going to listen to my intuition. He gets wheeled up to the beach, goes to the edge where the sand and the water are hitting each other, because he just wants to feel his toes dip into the sand, into the water. He gets lifted up and he falls flat on his face. And the embarrassment starts coming in. The fear starts coming in. And he said, Sunil, I have two things I can do at this moment. The first is that I can succumb to my fear. I can ignore my intuition, and I can sit right back in that wheelchair and forever regret that I've never been able to fulfill my dream. I am right here. Or I can listen to my intuition, those signals that are saying, come on, David, take a step. Come on, David, you can take step number 2. David, take step number 3. And he continues to walk in the water. And then he gets to the point where he's pointing to his chin, where the water gets just under his chin, and then he turns around. And what he said is, but listening to his intuitive signals, he was blown away by how far he came. And so that's what it means by living in the present moment. That's what it means by listening to those signals. That's what it means by battling those fears, because fear is either you're going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or you're not, based on where intuition hits in your brain. So that fear is good. That fear is your friend. There's a positive signal telling you. And if you look at neuroscience, in brain plasticity research, when you are fearful, your neurons are opening up to say, give me a new pathway. Help me break those bad habits. And when you act on those fears, those neurons start looking at those new neural pathways that are going to help you continue to break those bad habits so that you can accelerate your success. But if you don't take action, what happens to those neurons? I'm back in the same old patterns again.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So powerful. And, you know, the very first thing I think that people get very confused with is fear versus gut, because our gut could be saying yes and we're scared. Our gut can be saying yes and we're not scared. And we're more likely to follow our gut when we're not scared, but we're more likely to listen to that fear voice and not move forward, even though our gut is saying yes. Have you found people in that situation?
Absolutely. And what they're waiting for is that they're basically saying when the fear of not doing something is greater than the fear of doing something, they'll do something, right? So they're waiting for the volume of fear, the level of fear. And so it doesn't mean that because it's a fearful situation and it's a bad situation, your intuition is saying move into it. What you're saying is, okay, I'm feeling fear. If it's a negative signal, that means that fear is validated because the situation I'm walking into is a dangerous one, or I've failed in the past, or someone else has failed in the past, and I'm walking into that same situation. That's when your intuition, again, is looking at your experience and saying, you've been here before. It didn't turn out well. Here's a negative signal saying the decision you're about to make is not the right one. And so again, paying attention to that signal. But if that fear means that there's a door of opportunity, you just don't trust yourself because so many times you've been relying on other people's opinions that you forgot your own.
Yeah.
And your intuition is going to send you a positive signal saying, you've got this. You've done the skills before. I know you can do this. That's why your intuition is sending you a positive signal. And you got to trust it to take that step.
Yep.
And then you
do it
get
scared,
yourself out
right?
Yeah, do it scared. And you get yourself rid of those relationships. You get yourself rid of those opinions that don't matter. And when you're living your life, who cares what other people think?
Right.
Right? If you don't trust them, that's your life. Right. And so why regret when you're 65 or when you're 80? Why regret the stuff you weren't able to do today?
Yeah.
Right.
And you also have another book called Fail Forward, Succeed
Fail
Faster.
Fail fast, succeed faster. And that was, so the premise of that book, which is actually the seed of how I started intuitionology, was that if you look from the failure of others, and so I interviewed close to 300 people, then you should be able to succeed. So if you read that book and you're going into business, here's a bunch of 75 stories of failure, and you don't want to repeat any of those. And what I found was that when I used to start speaking on stages around the world about that book, the one common question I used to get was, Sunil, tell me the one thing that I can do that's going to help me succeed. And at that time, I used to roll my eyes because I didn't come here with a cue card or a PDF sheet. I came here with a 400-page book to talk about its stories until I went back to the audio recordings. And when I went back to the audio recordings, it was very clear that those people who failed were the ones who took advice from other people that they didn't trust, or they didn't trust themselves. And the ones who succeeded or got through their failure were able to trust their gut. This is the actual language they use. Trust their gut, trust their intuition. They were able to trust themselves to make the decisions to get them out of the situation that they went into. And so this common thread of intuition, which I didn't pick up on, started coming to the forefront. And that got me really excited about figuring out, okay, is there science to this? And that started me on the journey of writing my second book, where I took a look at the science. And when I went to an academic database, I typed in the word intuition. I'm thinking 10 or 12 articles, 53,000 plus articles on intuition. And of those, 2/3 of those articles deal with intuition and relationships. Oh. And so it was very, very clear that these two things are intertwined. Yeah. And so when you again, we scrub back those people that don't really move our lives forward to bring those people that really want to see us succeed, then we're able to listen to those intuitive signals much clearer. And so then any decision we make is going to be the right decision. Mm-hmm. And that's how you find success in life.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And so when you're working with your particular clients and they're based on they're trying to make a decision and they're not understanding how to listen to their intuition, how do you guide them and help them so that they can?
Yeah, and the first step is really getting down to what are your inventory of signals, and taking a look at what they've done in the past. And what happens is, in some cases, there are some people who've gone through some trauma that they just can't get rid of. And so this is when I work with them one-on-one through either some NLP or hypnotherapy and get them out of that trauma. So it's not saying that didn't exist. Right. What I'm saying is that I'm just going to remove the emotional part of that so that you can recognize that it happened. But when you remove the emotional part out of that, then you don't trap your amygdala, which is the limbic part of your brain, back in that traumatic event. You release it from that memory so that you're able to listen to the intuitive signals coming forward. And so it's really looking at what happened in the past, what stopped them in the past. A lot of people with a lot of trauma. But when we release that, and then when we take a look at their relationships, we make sure they surround themselves with the right people, then things start to come forward. We also take a look at what's your purpose? What are you doing? What do you want to do in life? And a lot of people don't know what that is, or they do know what it is. They don't know how to live life like that. And it doesn't mean purpose means that you have to run a massive business, or, you got to be you can have a huge impact. If that's what you want to do, absolutely. But when you figure out what your purpose is, especially in business, I had one case where Tatiana, she was a swimwear. She was just doing swimwear. But when she realized what her swimwear really represented, she changed her line to do swimwear out of fishnets. and because she was very, very passionate about the oceans and animals and things like that. So because of polluting the environment, she said, let's get recycled fishnets. I'm going to make clothing out of it. And then she shrunk her customer base, but these weren't the people that were buying from her. Not only did she shrink her customer base, but they were buying 3 times more and higher ticket items. So she actually almost tripled her revenue by finding out simply what her purpose was. And when you tell that story, when you're aligned with that story or that purpose and you talk about it, people want to work for you. Yeah. Customers want to buy from you because they really attach to that story. And the marketplace loves what your story is. Yes. And if you're doing it in an authentic and genuine way, and then you have that trifecta, that's how you crush the competition, because 99% of businesses are not doing that. And way too many times we see things where we stop the scroll on social media, and at some point there's something inauthentic going on. Mm-hmm. And your intuition is picking up, right? Intuition is a two-way street. So I'm going to see, do the words match the actions? When I'm watching that video, am I seeing some deceptive body twitches? Now, you don't have to be experts. Your intuition's already picking this up. What's the tone? Do I believe that tone? And the minute that I sense a bit of distrust, I pull away. Mm-hmm. And so this is the problem with people marketing nowadays, is they're marketing something that I don't believe. And that trust, by the way, takes 10 to 14 seconds. That's it. 10 to 14 seconds. So you as a business owner have 10 to 14 seconds to grab somebody's trust. And when you do, then they're going to get engaged with you. And then they're going to believe you. And then they buy your products and services. That's how you win in business.
I love it. I love it. So we've got lots of tutors in the house today. We've got Joanne Ventervogel. We have Magnolia Beauty. Glad you are here. Kathy Cousino. Woo woo. We have my VA in the house, who, by the way, is in a wheelchair and says that wheelchairs and beaches are not friends. And we have Sherry. So glad that you guys are here. Ruth, glad you guys are joining us in this conversation. And we would really love to, be able to incorporate your questions inside here as well. So if you have any questions about anything that you're hearing, feel free to type them on in, and we will throw them on into our conversation about intuition. I love that you're going to be doing this 7-day challenge so that you can begin learning to listen to what your cues are about your intuition and being able to tap into all of them. I know that, like, just listening to you, I know that I only tap into one.
That's
like,
it.
I have two.
Okay.
I have two, I should say, because it's not a little, it's a voice. So I've got the feeling in the gut, and then I have the voice. So I wait, I listen, and I hear a voice. It says yes or no. It usually only answers me in those 2 words.
Okay. So it's very clear.
It's very clear. It's like yes or no, and it's very quick. And so then I know if this is going to be a right. And it drives my husband absolutely bonkers because I can make decisions very quickly. And and he's a questioner. So he likes to question the heck out of everything and explore all of that. And so I let him know, when you're ready to make a decision, come call me. I'm ready to help you with what, if you've done the research and you know what you want to show me, you show me and I'll make my decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes what happens is people aren't, they think that they get, especially men, they like to use way too much of the rational part of the brain. And the way that the reason why women are better at intuition is because the neurons cross the brains a lot more. So they're using both halves, sort of the creative as well as the rational. And so there's this balance of head and heart. With men, it's more longitudinal. And so there's a lot more of using the frontal lobe, which is the rational part. And then we've just kind of grown up like that, but sometimes the data is just not there. Or if it's a really important decision, it's fine if you need to take the time, but just recognize that your intuition's already giving you those signals ahead of time. And what you need to do is sometimes maybe work out the logic. Okay, how am I going to do that? So especially if you've got a big strategic decision in your business, or if you want to grow your business as an online tutor, how do you do that? What are some of the different marketing avenues, and how does that work with my budget? How does it work with my time? Who do I need to get involved? And so those are times when you're going to sit back and listen to your intuitive signals to figure out that part, because there's maybe a larger strategy that's involved in that. So it's okay to take that time. But when you get way too much into the weeds with that, when you start confirming those things, and sometimes you convince yourself otherwise, because the data says something and you're missing the boat, then you're totally missing the boat. And then you become a statistic. you become like all the 99% that don't do it the right way.
Right, right. And so don't feel bad if you guys are part of that 99%. A lot of us fall into it, right?
Yeah,
Obviously,
absolutely. Yeah,
right? We all have those moments where
absolutely.
that's absolutely going to happen. And Kathy says she wants to know more about this, about your challenge. So tell us more about your 7-day challenge.
Absolutely. So what the 7-day challenge does is that the first thing you do in this challenge, it's a very proprietary set of steps. There's 7 steps in it, and so I've kind of released the 7 days in there, so you can do it on your own. But so I start by getting you to look at a problem that you've wanting to solve in a while, and so by you listing what didn't work, what you're starting to work on is your negative signals first, and that's very, very important, because when it looks at what the next step is, which is and there's a couple of steps in between, but when you're looking at what's going to work, it's important to know what your negative signals are first for that problem, and who influenced you to give you those negative signals. Because when you're looking at putting in place a solution, you want to make sure that the steps that you list, if you force a step in there, a negative signal is going to say, Sunil, come on now. You know that that's not a step you should put in there. And so you take that step out. And so you've got your negative signals. And then when you're looking at putting the steps together, you got your positive signals. Now you have your inventory of signals ready for you. The next is, who is going to help you with that? And there's 4 groups that you put people into. And the 2 groups that you need to pay attention to is who has direct experience and knowledge that's going to help you solve that problem, and who are going to be your cheerleaders that are going to help you solve that problem. And again, it's very, very specific. So you can't, if you're going to force your best friend in because it's sexy to do a 7-day challenge, your negative intuitive signal is going, come on, Sunil, you know better, right? You need to, that friend, although that friend may be good, or that family member may be good for another problem, for this specific problem, he or she's not going to help. And the next thing is, what environment do you change yourself in? List the steps and then take action. And on top of the 7 days that you go through, there are 2 people that I have also go through each of the tasks with you on their own. And the first is John Harris, who actually sold his house using the 7 days. On day 1, he got an offer of $20,000 under asking price with a realtor who came in and threw a card in his face. And before the challenge, he would have said yes, because he would have been bullied into saying and getting scared, this is the only thing you're going to sell. And he goes, okay, sign the contract. But he trusted his intuition to wait. And he ended up not listening to his friends and family, listening to himself and his wife. Again, the people you surround yourself with. And he ended up selling for $50,000 over asking on a bidding war. That's a $70,000 decision in that 7 days. And perhaps the one that gets a lot of people, their jaws dropping, is Ashley Michelle, who, what happened to her is she walked into an apartment where her boyfriend had just murdered their best friend in the bathtub. He closes the door behind her, locks all the doors, puts a knife to her back and says, "You're next." He says, "I'm going for 1 murder. Might as well make it 2. Her intuition gets her to calm down. Her intuition watches him, relational intuition watches him to manage him. She gets an intuitive moment to escape, a real escape. So she was choked, assaulted, asked to clean up the blood. And through all that, her intuition's waiting for that moment that she gets to escape, gets it, runs, unlocks the doors, 18 flights of stairs down, calls 911, and obviously lived to tell the story. But she used the 7-day challenge to deal with her PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And she stripped away all the people who were giving her lots of suggestions to pick the people that she really needs to surround herself with. And what she found after the 7 days is she could finally trust people. She can finally go to this place called the gym to just deal with her emotions. And so after the 7 days, her life completely changed, right? And it's not going to solve the PTSD, depression, anxiety. There's lots of therapy that she needs for that. But what happens is it's minimized that, so that she doesn't have to just simply get out of the apartment and start looking over her shoulder every single time. She can actually go for runs. She can actually go to the gym. She can feel safe. And the 7-day challenge helped her do that. So if I look at Ashley and John solving those kind of problems for them, you can solve whatever problem you have in your life.
Absolutely. How powerful is that? So you got me. I am in. I hear other people saying, yes, we are in. Joanne is in for the challenge. Lots more people saying, this is amazing stuff. It absolutely is. And this is, you don't really think about it this way, but it's a business strategy.
It is.
It's a really
Yeah,
powerful business strategy. So
it
if you're
absolutely
all
is.
about like learning different business strategies, this is the biggest gift you've ever been given from God, from the universe, from whatever you want to believe. This is the biggest gift you've been given to be able to run your business, because you'll be able to
Absolutely.
make every decision that you need to be able to make based
Yep.
off of these signals. Now, not everybody has the same signals that react in the same way.
Exactly. They're all unique. They're all unique. So everybody, so you've got a voice and a gut. For me, the dots connect. I had somebody whose left earlobe got hot when he got into a bad situation. We have the omen. We have a floating orb. There's so many things. Some people just get anxious. So it's all unique. So we could share a signal, which is fine. So that signal could be, though, and for me in a professional situation, whereas for you in a personal situation, I mean, when I was 5 years old, I had a voice as well. And when I was 5, there was these video games that I wanted to buy, wanted my dad to buy. He said no, and I had this voice, strict voice, like, Sunil, go door to door to raise money. So here's me at 5 years old, going door to door with lots of milk and cookies, and I raised $200. $100
Nice.
went to my dad. $100 went to charity, because that's what I was for. And so that voice is very, very specific when I was younger. Now it's moved more to, for example, if there's a negative event for me that I know there's a problem, my eyebrows immediately start to cross, and I lose my peripheral vision. I get so hyper focused because my intuition has picked up on something negative in the environment, something negative with that person, something negative with the situation. And so I can immediately feel like, whoosh. And so I know I've got to pay attention because I have a negative intuitive signal. And then it's for me to figure that out, what that is, based on what I was thinking or the decision I'm about to make. So that's hyper unique.
Yeah.
And so this is where the 7-day challenge comes in, is that you need to figure out what that uniqueness is. And if you look at it from an online tutor perspective, or if you're a tutor, what is your story? What are you trying to do with people you're tutoring? How have you helped other people? Because I know we've just hired a tutor from somebody else, and we were looking at a stable of tutors. And guess what? We looked at what it felt like. What was their story? Who did they help? Do I believe that testimonial? I'll be reading the body language when we interview them. So I'm looking to make sure that purpose is true. What they're saying is exactly what they're doing, because in the end, I'm going to be putting money in who are learning, and to find that tutor that's right for me. And again, that's that relationship. It's my intuition picking that person, and guess what? She's getting money from us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, that's as a tutor. Here's a perfect example of a customer that's coming, and now we have a long-term contract with her. Right. Yes. She's going to be there for a year, if not more.
That's awesome.
With my daughter. Right. And
that's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I have never heard anybody use that word before, stable of tutors. But that's what the kind of is, isn't it? Like there's like these companies, they have a stable of tutors, and as an independent person, you get to stand out because the people get to choose you. And so
absolutely,
when you get to be authentic and be who you are, and it works in the reverse. I can start using my intuition to know, am I meant to work with this person specifically? Yes, because
very important.
There might be some clues that I'm getting, like they're not understanding what it is that I do, or they're not really in it for the long run. They just want a quick result, and then they're going to be out the door. You're going to be able to use your clues. Do you want to move forward working with them as well? And is this a good fit, versus just saying yes to everybody because it means income in your pocket? It could be stopping you from working with that next person who is the right fit that you should be working with.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. You want to get rid of those customers from hell, because those are the ones that, maybe they're late in paying, right? And you got a business to run. Right. And so you got to look at it from both perspectives. And so when you get the right type of customers, or you get the right specialization, it's very, very important to say no, because again, you're taking away from somebody you can say yes to in that same time slot. Again, opportunity cost, right?
Right.
Same thing, right? So you're making $15 here doing something that you really hate. Whereas in this case, you can make $14 an hour, but loving tutoring that person, because that's going to turn into a 6-month contract and not a 2-week contract. Right. So there's some tangible financial benefits to this. Not only and then you enjoy teaching that person. Those are the intangibles. You enjoy working with that family. Right. And it just makes you feel happier. So there's the tangible and the intangible that really work together, which intuition helps you with.
Yeah. And I'm interested to know if anybody else in the audience has had this happen to them. So if it has, share your story with us. But for me, I remember the very first moment that I knew working with students was going to be my calling. And I was actually doing an assessment with a student. I was sitting in my office testing them, and this complete feeling of I'm exactly where I need to be, complete joy, complete happiness, just washed over my entire body, and it left me with this is what I'm supposed to be meant to do. Now at that moment I didn't know what that meant. I knew it had something to do with me one-on-one with another kid. But I was just sitting there doing an assessment, and it was like, I want more of that. I want more.
Mm-hmm.
I want that again. I want more of that. And I know it's not testing kids, because that's only a piece of it. And I knew in that moment that I wanted to be able to work with kids, and my job was pulling me further and further and further from working with kids, because I was considered administration as a reading specialist. So I was more in like helping the teachers and helping, do training for them, and less working with kids. And when I had that moment, it's something that I've always kind of looked back on, like, yes, your intuition's like speaking to you at different points of your life. And now it's like you're able to put those pieces together, like you said, like kind of connecting those dots. Is that what
Yep.
it's like to connect those
That's
dots?
that's exactly what it is. And so, yeah, you get that feeling, and you know that that's where you want to go. And it's very, very interesting that you know exactly it's not assessments, it's something different. So even it's not even general. You're getting very, very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you know where your sweet spot is, right? And so it's
Yes.
very important. You can hear in the language that you have. And so even as a customer now, so if we're looking at somebody like you, and we've interviewed people for Kumon, Oxford Learning, Tutor Doctor. There's a bunch of franchises out there that do this. And in fact, I was a keynote for Tutor Doctor in Niagara Falls for their worldwide franchisee conference, which was really interesting, because it was you can tell the people that were really, just by being a keynote speaker and just walking around, you can tell the ones that are successful versus the ones that aren't, just by the way they carry themselves,
Mm-hmm.
just by the way you ask them. So how's the business going? Very, very just easy tells. And so these are people really engaged, but we're also as customers looking at your excitement,
Yes.
versus somebody else's, where it says, yeah, that person doesn't seem engaged, or it seems like a script, right?
Sure.
And so if I don't get that feeling, because this is for my kids, and my financial well-being too, that matters, right?
Yeah.
And it's those subtle things that intuition picks up on. That's the difference between you and another tutor,
Yeah.
right? And when you do this, you separate yourself from everybody else, because it's that intangible thing that you trigger. When you trigger the emotion of someone else, you trigger the intuition of someone else, you develop that trust, and it's game over in the tutoring space.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And here's the thing, we talk about confidence a lot, and being really comfortable and confident. And confidence comes with time. And so the more confident you are, the more people can really start seeing that true intuition. So keep doing it, you guys. You might still be at the point where you're kind of like scripting it out and just trying to go through and get through those conversations. At some point, those conversations are going to become more automatic, because a lot of us are coming from the teaching world, so we didn't have to sell our services, right? We just had a whole classroom full of kids, and that was cool. And then we decide, later on in life, like, teaching isn't my thing. I'm going to move on into, doing tutoring one-on-one. And now I have to sell my services, and it's a whole new ballgame that a lot of us have never experienced before. And so it is uncomfortable in the beginning. You get better at it as you go through time. I know I hated it in the beginning, but there was always something inside of me that said, but you have to get good at it. It doesn't matter if you don't enjoy it. You have to get good at it. And so I continued to refine and get better and get training and do all those kinds of things, because that's where my intuition was guiding me. It was saying, this is a necessary step. You don't
Absolutely,
get to skip. Yeah. You don't get to skip this one.
Yeah, and you also, even when you were a teacher, though, there's sort of there's tutoring moments there, right? And so if you focus on that child that you developed, or that one piece of advice you gave that child, and what happened when he or she went because of you, those are the stories that you want to use, right? And how are the ones that you've developed, and you're just so proud, and you look at them through your own lens. Mm-hmm. But those are the same stories that you need to share, because there's your confidence, right? Because of me, this happened. Because of me, that happen. And don't worry about ego. There's a difference between ego and
Yep.
self-confidence. And people think it's a fine line, but ego means you're talking about something that you have no experience knowing. But when you talk about something that you've actually helped, because even you just said you can do it, that's it, right? Just like Nike, they've got 2 words, and if you've just given those 2 words and that 3 words, and that child has gone on to do some amazing things because of you, and you did it, that's self-confidence. And be happy to talk about that, because that's what I want to see. I want that story for my kid.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And so when you can share those kind of stories and look at some customizing ones based on maybe cultural issues, maybe the area that they're looking at tutoring, customize it for that person. And you've got the story, because my intuition is telling you, you're telling the truth. I trust you. And you're going back in time talking about somebody else's life you changed.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you do as a tutor.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're changing somebody's life. And my kids are remembering those teachers that have moved them ahead. In fact, my daughter was talking about this yesterday. My daughter actually so she's 14. She runs her own nonprofit business. And she's raised over $30,000 because of intuition. And she was on a podcast interview yesterday, because she has her own podcast series. And this was one of the questions that she had was, well, who is the best teacher that had her? And she went back, she goes, honestly, most of the teachers don't matter, except this one that allowed me to be creative, that allowed me to go against what the schools wanted to do. And that's what I did. And then she named the teacher. And so that's how she remembered that particular teacher. Right. And so again, that memory of just somebody saying, yeah, you can do something different from what the class wants to do. For my daughter, that was an important point.
Yes.
Right. And for the teacher, and I've talked to the teacher, and says, thank you so much for allowing that, because it's helped my daughter Avni immensely.
Yeah.
So just her knowing that story, and you can see the smile on her face, but that's what tutors should be, right?
Yes.
You're really changing lives.
Yeah. And it is really important, you guys, to get really comfortable with being able to tell these different stories. So write them down. What are those stories? So then you can pick them out. Like when the situation arises, you have that ability to pull that story, but you have a way to be able to verbalize it without feeling uncomfortable sharing the story. And don't be afraid to share the story and not like have to give details about the student, right? Like share that story of that student, and it's going to be significant. I actually did one of my parents ended up messaging me. Her daughter was in high school, and she said, my daughter's graduating this year. And I was like, oh my God, that's really starting to age me now, right? Like, she's graduating. Like, what the heck? She's like, and I just wanted to say thank you to you, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of what you did for her when she was back in first grade. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so incredible that you remember that. But then I started remembering her story, and I thought, this is the story that I need to share with people, because my ideal client is in that first and second grade level. She was my ideal client. I remember pictures. I was very close friends with all of my clients back in those days. And I remember pictures that specifically helped tell my story. And so I asked permission of the parent, and I said, would it be okay if I wrote this as like a story for my blog, like her journey and what it's like today, because of the experience that she had? And she said yes. I asked for permission to use those photos of Ruby, the student that I used. And, it shows Ruby with her backpack on, first day of school, first grade. And, at the end of that year, Ruby was at the lowest 25% of her class in reading. And Mom was really disappointed and really disheartened. And she reached out to a group of hers on Facebook that were other moms, just a local moms group that they had on Facebook. And one of those moms knew me, and she referred me to her. And we began taking a look at where her daughter was at, where she was struggling. I did the assessment, did all those pieces, found out that she was struggling with phonics. We were able to, in 3 short months, be able to close that gap for her. So she ended up starting second grade, reading at a third grade reading level. So she ended first grade, right? This picture of her starting second grade, like no lie, is her with her arms shooting up in the air like this on day 1 of second grade. So different from her picture that she had starting first grade. She was still excited first grade, but day 1 of third grade, hands shooting in the the air. So
Wow.
excited. And then there's mom, and mom actually like jumped up in the air because it was like the first day of school. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I use that picture to help share how you felt when your daughter was reading on grade level? And she's like, yes. So then I put that on there. I'm like, and this is how mom felt, and mom's jumping in the air. And, it tells the story so perfectly of just, what it's like. What do people feel like as they go through this process? What is the process like? And how quickly can it happen for people that it doesn't have to be a totally long, stretch of time that it's going to take to be able to close the reading gap. Your kid doesn't have to read every single day, even after school. They could just do a couple of activities a couple times a week with me, and boom, we can get them on reading level. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's that ripple effect. It's not just the student that you're affecting, it's the family, it's the extended family, it's their lives, right? And so when you look at that ripple effect, guess what? Now you've got marketing content for your social media posts, and the copy that you have and the flyers that you put out and the ways that you talk to people in some of the networking groups, right? There's your copy, there's your marketing copy, and there's your alignment between your purpose, right? With those people who are helping you, because people are going to help you as VAs or what have you, are there for your story, but your customers are there because they're listening to you or reading your story, and the marketplace knows that you're there because you're spreading that message out, and there's your trifecta.
Yeah,
and that's how you change and that's you crush your top competition. Remember, 10 to 14 seconds. That's it. That's all you need to have me come in and hire you. 10 to 14 seconds.
Yeah. And a lot of people know it before they even contact me that
they
I'm
do.
going to be the one that they're going to hire because they've already done all their research.
And they have. They just need to confirm it.
Yep, exactly.
Their intuition saying, I think this is the person that we're thinking about doing because they've done it. But then you need to make the next step and say, absolutely.
Yes.
I want to work with you. We want to work together. And there's that two-way intuition. That's what we call intuitive resonance. Something called intuitive resonance. And you resonate with, and that's it. There's your long-term or short-term, but it's an enjoyable relationship. And then you're making waves for that family.
Yeah. Right? In the beginning, I would constantly get advice from other people that as my reading tutoring business grew, I needed to hire other tutors. And I always had this gut feeling of nope. Like I would listen to my gut would sink, and I had a no. The no would just shoot out, but nope. And it would be like, okay. And I constantly, you guys, keep going back to this one because I have so many clients coming to me, and I just gift clients out now. I don't ask for anything in return. I gift them to people that I know are going to be a good fit, other tutors that are getting started that could be a good fit, people who've gone through my reading interventionist program that I know are going to be a good fit. I get a feeling on who that person is going to be, and I reach out to them to see if they're taking students, and I gift them. And it feels so much better to me than to think, oh, but I could be hiring other tutors and making money off of that. Why am I not doing that? It doesn't feel right for me. And that doesn't mean that that's the path that everybody has to follow. For some people, they're going to hear that voice of other people saying, you need to hire other tutors to go underneath you. You're going to hear that voice and you're going to say, yes. Maybe inside of your head, the voice is saying yes, very loud and clear. Your gut is feeling good. Maybe you've got that little premonition of something over your shoulder that is giving you those clues. I love this because you are going to be able to use all of these intuitive clues to know what is going to resonate with you and what is going to be the best fit for your business. And there's lots of ways that you can get recurring income now. You don't have to just hire other tutors underneath you. You can create courses. You can go, you can create YouTube channels. You can create, you can write books. The creative atmosphere is completely wide open. It's not like just one path, yet it's the one path that everybody will suggest to you that you need to take next. Don't listen to those people unless it resonates with you.
Absolutely. Just because somebody's saying you need to write a book doesn't mean to write a book. But if somebody's saying restricting you from just doing tutoring, you can always do an online course. You can always do something else because it just naturally fits. If everybody's asking the same questions and you can put a series of videos in a course, do that. Maybe that's the upsell for, $19.99 before they take some of your higher level services. And so you've got a lower price point for people to come in, test who you are, test your personality. It's more financially affordable. It's just right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then if they want to continue with you, if you want to take the advanced, then yeah, it's $39 a session, whatever the price point is. But there you've got a different pathway as well, and you map it out. And it's just a camera and you talking about some lessons, and you're throwing it into a courseware, which is usually pretty cheap nowadays because of technology. And there you go. You got a business model. Let's get some recurring income on the side. And then you just drive people to that. If you want to find out more, why don't you take this free PDF, and then you've got the upsell to the courses, and then the give me a call trigger on the back end for your higher level stuff. I'm just thinking right off the top of my head.
Yes. And that's all about having that effective funnel, right? So we talk a lot about that inside of here, is just knowing like how is a customer going to follow that buying path for you?
Yes,
it is not just land on your website and they are going to schedule you. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to put a little schedule button on side of my website and I'm done. No. It is high touch people in the beginning, high touch. Yeah. And so if you think that they already want to move forward with you just because they saw a website, you are so wrong. People want to get to know you more than than just I'm ready to start working with you and I'm going to hit that button there. And
it's definitely a trust factor. And so with trust, there's and if you look at the stats, there's 7 touch factors. There's between 80% it takes them about 2 years. 80% of those people who touch you for the first time when it comes to your website, it takes them about 2 years to get into, because of that trust factor. They may need the time, they may not have the finances. So there's a whole bunch of different things. But the thing is, when you look at trust and from a customer perspective, if you have a customer that buys from you the first time, they love what you're doing, more than half of them are going to buy a second time, and more than 3/4 of them are going to buy a third time. And they're going to tell others. And it's 6 times cheaper to market to a returning customer than it is a new customer. So when you start doing stuff on intuition and speaking of purpose and making sure that everything resonates with that, you're spending much, much less than the next person trying to get a business going. Yeah. Because everybody loves you. And that means that they don't love the other person. So if let's say I love you and somebody else is trying to get my attention, not only is it the cost of me coming, with their advertising, but it's also the cost of taking me out of our relationship. And that's expensive. So if I'm in bed with you when it comes to tutoring, it's going to be really expensive to someone else to try and get me to go to them, because I love what you're doing. Right. And if I don't love what you're doing, then it's going to be easy to move me away from you. Yeah. And
you'll find somebody else who can be able to do that, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
We're not meant to work with everybody, so that's
absolutely,
okay, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You have to really pick and choose your customer, because it's very important for you to enjoy what you're doing.
Absolutely, and you know that next right customer is going to come into your ballpark. So don't get don't take it personally when it happens. Like, you have to almost separate your feelings separated from some of the actions that other people are going to take. It's not about you, it's about the business. And so you just continue to improve your business, and you're going to improve the result for those customers, and they're going to continue to refer you. And then you get what you absolutely love, which is a business where people are referring you constantly. I know that's the number one way that tutors love to get referred is referrals, which is pretty much everybody out there in the world loves to get, business from referrals, because it means that we don't have to do too much, but it means that you're doing the right thing with the customers that you have. And that is the biggest compliment that we can get. You know what? Thank you so much, Sunil. You guys that are joining us, I'm going to send you a link later on today with that 7-day challenge, so that you guys can hop on the boat with that right away. I'm going to definitely be hopping in on that 7-day challenge and be learning more about how I can enact the other pieces of my intuition, so that I can make better decisions. And hopefully you guys will be able to as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sunil. It was absolutely wonderful. And thank you guys for tapping in and listening. I know other people have already said that they need to listen to this over and over again, because it was just so jam-packed with great information. So definitely do that, you guys, and enjoy the